time in 3 weeks you're playing the who might start at the quarterback position on the opposite side. What makes Cox and Illingworth, great, and what sets them apart from each other?
Well, I think both of them clearly, they were recruited to be able to get a ball down the field, and they can. Just big-time arms. They aren't bothered if somebody gets close to them. It's kind of like they can still see just fine. Yeah. And yet, and they have really, really good skill. You look over the years, that's been the case, and it's the case again this year. I think the other part is having a back that has tremendous power, which he has, and they are a hard game. It's just such a difficult game for us, and big picture, you look at the number of guys that they have that are fourth, fifth year, 6-year guys. You look, offensively. God, I'm trying to think. I think they scored, it was on 10 and ended up at 30. They scored 29 points in 18 plays last year. Now, that was overtime, but still, even in overtime, the ball starts at the 25. But to answer your question in regards to the quarterbacks, just a guy that's has touch, really, really strong arm. They both do.
Ken Wilson told me that he thought that Dom Patterson is the biggest disruptor on the defensive line he's ever had. He had a top 5 pick last year at Oregon. That's high praise. What are your thoughts on Dom Patterson?
I agree wholeheartedly. I think both two interior guys are about as good. And you watched them last week. Iowa's physical and big and has a bunch of really, really good offensive linemen, and they struggle to block, especially those two interior guys.
They forced a lot of turnovers in the first 3 games. What are they doing schematically that is giving them those opportunities?
I think they do a good job of mixing some man coverage, but zone coverage too, with a good number of variety of pressures out of both odd and even fronts. And who pressures, it can be a corner off an edge, it can be a safety, it can be an outside backer with an inside backer. They have all kinds of different ways that they're able to add additional rushers.
With the quarterbacks, are the skill sets different enough that it impacts preparation, or is that? No,
I think there are some similarities. Not drastically. I thought it did when we played 2 weeks ago. I thought the skill sets were so unique that you really had to have 2 separate plans going into that game, depending who was out there.
Any thoughts from you on moving the Army game next year to Denver?
I haven't. We're getting ready to go. We're cranking it up on Friday night and playing against a really, really hard opponent.
With the stadium renovations, though, because that was obviously part of this, as someone who is fully invested in this program, to see that additional investment coming, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, it's huge. It's, I just think, you think the locker room's really, really nice, incredible. The locker room, the media access room is purely first class. When the stadium was built, just amazing vision. When that thing first came to point in 1962, to get it there and the various ways, contribution-wise, for that to occur. And, you think, God, we played a game a couple of weeks ago, and you're really encouraging people to, go swing by Wendy's and get a single cheese every before you get to the stadium. Just the infrastructure that's absolutely paramount in the 21st century, and that's restrooms, bathrooms, egress, and just the quality of the stadium, the quality of the seats, in addition to the revenue capabilities. It's awesome that we're heading that direction, and it makes the academy better. It certainly helps the football program. It helps financially, being able to reinvest and resupport, our other programs too.
Was it kind of news to you that this was the timeline that it was going to happen at the end of this season, or had you kind of been informed that?
And we had a good idea that it was, and just a huge credit to the unity, the organization, and just more than anything else, the shared spirit between our corporation and the foundation, and the the work that's been done together that way, because it doesn't happen unless it's a team effort. And it pushes it forward and accelerates it forward. And golly, I mean, it's long overdue. And yet you can still kind of look at it. You're able to preserve. I know it's a Colorado State historical landmark, and whatnot, but truly to preserve a place where you think of how many academy graduates there are. That's where they threw their hat in the air. And so probably your greatest memory of the academy is finishing. It happened there, and yet a much nicer facility going forward.
And with Kyle Patterson, physically, where is he at now compared to maybe at the start of camp? How far has he come?
Oh, golly, he's made huge gains. He did not do hardly anything the first 3.5 weeks of August. And last week was the first full game he had played since last September. And just being able to practice, I think there's still some time that you have to work through, but hopefully what it does, those last, if he's healthy for any guy, but hopefully it pays off, those last 6-7 games of the season.
Yeah, and how can that help you to have a full-strength Kyle Patterson?
Golly, absolutely. I mean, just, he's stout at the point of attack anytime that he has to block. You don't hesitate not only to block an outside backer, but for him to block a defensive end too. The ball skills that he has, on third down especially. Absolutely.
And obviously it's not the air raid offense anymore, but what identity does Nevada have from what you've seen?
I think you can tell all those pass concepts are still really prominent in what they do. I think the difference is the commitment that they've made to be able to utilize the back a little more, especially running the ball.
Hey, Coach. Obviously, y'all's result in Wyoming is probably what y'all did not want, but I know y'all are taking it day by day leading up to your next game. What is it y'all are really trying to focus on this week heading into your next game?
Well, I think each game each day, to be able to prize practice opportunities. And we're just going to have to get better and better and better as we go throughout the season. And, we thought we were going to have a good number of new parts, that we had to kind of get going through the first half of this season. And we had a few more last week too. And yet nobody in football ever says, all right, everybody's up and ready to go and nobody. And so that's somewhat, reasonable by all means. And just to keep improving, and I think we know we're a work in progress, yet the thing that I love is that we do embrace work. Some of the things that I'm trying to think in hindsight here, it's, you do want to see, all right, are we reducing, are we taking care of the ball fairly well? Assignment-wise, are we fairly sound? Trying to minimize at least the number of yellow flags that come out, because I do think in that first game we had a good number of false starts and stuff like that. In addition to just executing at a little bit better level, and that's where we're focused.
And how has the team's energy been so far this week?
Are any of the injuries season-ending? Can you speak to that? Or
I won't. I'm never going to really address injuries. I won't, more than likely.
What kind of setbacks did you hit with your recovery from the knee injury?
Mainly just the injury itself was kind of a huge setback. Like going into my junior year, I was expected to have a really big season and contribute to the team a lot. So it was pretty frustrating going down on game 4. But the recovery process is pretty easy. We have great trainers like Jess, Kaz, Ernie, and Mark helped me out a bunch. A couple months ago, I had to get another meniscus surgery just because it retore. But Dr. Robbins, a great surgeon, went in and cleaned me up real quick, so able to get out back on the field, which was really nice.
So what was the initial injury? Was it meniscus part of that, or was that?
Yeah, it was ACL and meniscus.
Okay, both.
So they repaired it, and then just throughout the rehab process, just retore again. So
when you initially re-injured the meniscus, did you think your season could be in danger?
He didn't know how extensive the re-tear was. So going into surgery, I didn't know if it was going to be a full repair or just a cleanup. Luckily, it was just a cleanup, so I was able to get back within the month to practice and stuff instead of being out the whole senior season.
When was that?
About 2 months ago now, I think. I don't remember the exact date, but
Okay. So now that you have the season, I mean, does it feel like a gift? Because
oh yeah, no, I'm extremely grateful for the opportunity to come out and play football again. Like it sucked being able to or having to just watch practice and like watch games on TV on the sideline. So being able to contribute to our success this season is really nice.
Yeah, how did it happen last year?
Last year we were playing Florida Atlantic, and I was blocking a corner deep in the end zone by the banner or the stadium or the screen.
Got it.
And I just stepped wrong, like stepped a little inward and felt my knee pop, and then yeah, knew after that. I was like, so that's what everyone's talking about whenever they hear their knee pop, and
Okay. But it was a non-contact. It was one where
Yeah.
it just got it.
it just stepped weird.
And so physically, how do you feel now compared to like beginning of camp? Like how much have you progressed just in this short time?
So the beginning of camp I was limited just because of the new surgery I got again. But it feels really good now. I'm with the trainers every day, like an hour before practice, getting right with them. But relatively, I was a little weak just on cutting and routes and stuff at the beginning of camp, and now I'm feeling a lot stronger and more confident in what I do. So,
Are there any areas you kind of feel like you're still catching up, or do you feel like you're back to you?
I mean, I can always get stronger in my legs and stuff. That's always been something I'm gonna have to strive for the rest of this season. Just maintaining my body and keeping it up. So like the knee doesn't become a factor, but I feel relatively strong and good to go for the rest of the season.
And what do you think a healthy version of you brings to the offense?
I mean, you saw it last game. Like I'm able to make those strong third down conversions for the team when need be. But other than that, I'm a really solid blocker. So I know they like run behind me and our offensive line. So I feel like the best way I can help the team is wherever they roll they need me to play. If that's making plays on third down or just blocking the whole game, I'm okay with that.
How would you assess the attitude of the team? You know, where are you guys at following last week?
Last week we were really upset after the game, but we processed it and scraped it because we can't let that dwindle on for this week's game. New opponent and happened. Just scratch it and move on.
And it's a team that's played you guys tight, you know, for the last 5 or 6 meetings in Nevada. Like, as you look at them on film, I mean, do you see it's a good matchup, or how do you kind of assess it, and how do you evaluate what's happened in the past?
I mean, it'll be a challenge no matter what team we face, but all we have to do is take care of us, and we'll have a good shot of winning.
First, can you go ahead and announce or pronounce your name for
Oh
me?
yeah, so it's Kalavita,
And your last name?
Piscaya.
Okay, awesome.
Yes.
And then how, obviously y'all's result, your last game, how are you individually this week and moving forward into your next game?
I mean, that was definitely a tough loss, but I think it forced us to kind of take a step back and look at like what kind of team we are, who we are, and kind of go back to like the identity and the culture we're trying to build. Not only like within our position groups or like on the defense or offense, but as a whole team, and kind of just look back at those things that we want to accomplish, that we need to do every day, day in and day out, and just move forward from there.
And then how are you feeling going into your next game?
Feeling good. We had a very good day of practice yesterday. Definitely got after it. Sweated out, banged around with each other. It was good. Definitely feeling good about going into this week.
And then is there anything this week you individually are wanting to focus on moving forward, whether it's just for your next game or throughout the season?
I think for me personally, it'll just building my confidence back after coming back from my injury last season is still something that I'm working towards. But I mean, every day, every week, I'm feeling a lot more confident playing on it and as I get more playing time, especially in the games, I'm feeling a lot more confident.
What was the injury last year?
So I tore my ACL and meniscus. Yeah.
How did it happen?
It was against San Diego State. It was a no contact injury, unfortunately.
And was it we just talked to Kyle Patterson about the same thing. He had a setback. Have you had any setbacks, or has it been a pretty smooth recovery?
No, it's been a pretty smooth recovery. It's definitely had its challenges throughout the process, but for the most part, I've been able to make strides every day, every week, every month, and so forth.
Playing a position where you need strength so much, how has that impacted you? Getting that back and feeling game ready.
It's definitely not the same, and that's something that you kind of have to adapt to after coming back from a serious injury, such as a torn knee. But the biggest thing is just confidence in playing on it, and then just going back to basic techniques. Running your feet, strong hands, like quick feet, all that stuff definitely helps.
And I know you talked about like the culture and kind of the off-field stuff, but on-field, what can you learn from facing that running attack and kind of a versatile quarterback last week that you can carry forward into this week and beyond?
I think it just shows us, especially as a defense, kind of like the culture and like the identity that we've built for ourselves over the years. It's kind of something like swarming to the ball, all 11 guys around the ball every play, pursuit, effort, everything, always going for the ball. That's something that like we always practice every day, and that's something that we kind of strayed away from in the game. And that's something that our coaches and us as players we identified after this game that we need to make sure that we do every game, because that's what gives us our edge.
And how are things going on the defensive line? I know there's been some injuries and like Bo Richter coming up, and like, are you kind of settling in now to roles, or is it going to be like this all season, kind of shuffling?
I mean, you can never really know what's going to happen just because injuries happen, things like that. But guys have definitely done a good job in taking on new positions, like Bo playing DN, and then Chris moving from DN to D tackle, things like that. I mean, there's not super major changes, especially when you're moving within the D line, but I think guys have done well adapting to the positions that they've been put in.
Okay. And is there still the same sense of excitement? Last week going into it, you're still undefeated, getting votes and all this. There was such a vibe. Do you still have that, or do you have to kind of work harder now to create it?
No, I think there's always that excitement. I mean, Coach always says it's hard to win a game in the Mountain West Conference. And, that challenge is something that we're always excited for every week.
And we couldn't remember, are you a turnback guy?
No, I'm not.
Okay, so you're a guy. So do you have your job yet?
Yes, I do.
What is your job?
I'll be doing space operations, so I'll be going into the Space Force.
Nice. And do you know where that'll be yet? Or?
No, so we haven't put in base locations yet, but I can either end up in Florida here or California primarily.
Was that your number one?
Yes, it was.
Job?
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Congratulations.
Thank you.
No. When you have an injury like you had that it's going to be long term, it's not a next month or even 2 months, 3 months. Along the way, did you ever have any moments throughout rehab say, this isn't going to happen? Like doubt?
No, honestly. I've had a good support system throughout it. There's other guys that were going through the same thing, like Kyle, and then like Lakota. So I was with those guys every day, and it was good to have people around who went through it before. Guys like Lakota and Kenny and Gaima were guys that I looked to kind of for guidance throughout the process. And then, I mean, the job that the trainers did, Kaz and Jess, people like that, they're really helpful throughout the process and keeping me motivated and moving forward.
So you and Kyle kind of leaned on each other to encourage, and I'm sure that helped a ton when you guys were grinding through that.
Yes, for sure.
Did you have one of those aha moments where you finally got on the field and you wondered, is it going to hold up? And like, it did. I'm good to go. And when was that?
I think the first time was just going back out in the spring during spring workouts with Coach Getty and kind of just moving around and doing everything again. And then we started doing prep stuff for, like short shuttle, 40, stuff like that. And kind of just making those cuts within those drills. I was like, oh, wow, like that actually feels really good. And then the other one was, that first day I went out to practice and actually got a hit. Kind of just taking on that first block, coming out feeling explosive, shedding, all that stuff. Definitely, that was another like big confidence boost for me.
What was the first snap for you? Like when you actually got into a game a couple weeks ago and you got to feel it for real and you're back on the field. What was it like for you?
It was just exciting. It was just such a long time since I've been able to play a snap. I was just excited to be back out in Falcon Stadium, being out in the field and just being with the guys again out there. It was awesome. It was fun.